Sinister Mysteries.
Episode 187, The Case of the Pale Bride. Hello, and welcome again to another installment of the Sinister Mysteries podcast, the podcast that explores the deepest and darkest corners of the most baffling murder mysteries. I am Anna Lane, and together with my co-host supreme, Sally Mackenzie,
hey,
we try to bring some light into those dark spaces that fill our hearts with fear. For even in the darkest of places, the light of truth has no rival and reveals all.
nice one.
You like it?
Yes, very poetic. Some real Mark Twain shit.
So, Sally,
Yes, my dear Anna Lane.
what's the featured case file you have for our fine audience this week?
It's the case of the Pale Bride of Wellesley Tower.
Oh, wow. That sounds cool.
It is. It's very cool. Oh, we have to remember to tell the audience about the thing.
The thing?
You know, the thing.
Oh, that thing! Yes, so before we get started today, we wanted to announce our very special episode, which we will be recording in 2 weeks' time. It's another one of our on-location events. Sally, Brett, and I will be visiting the infamous Camp Holyoke.
Yes. And the one and only Camp Holyoke, known for the brutal murders of 14 campers and camp counselors. Though the murderer was never identified, we intend to discover the truth behind that sinister mystery.
Nice. You fit the name in there.
Yup. So are you ready?
Yes. Ooh, the Pale Bride. Ooh.
And scene.
Yes, scene. That was my grand performance for the evening. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the Pale Bride of Wellesley Tower. This story takes place in Pahonik, Massachusetts. That's about 2 hours from Boston. It's a small farming community with a population of around 10,000. In 1956, young Betty Marie Turner, who was a senior at the local high school, met Fred Darrington, a mild-mannered 28-year-old paper mill employee. They met at the Founders Day dance, where they fell in love. 3 months later, they were engaged to be married.
That's quick.
It was quick. Though, that was oldie-timey days, so maybe that's how they did it back then. So, Betty and Fred very quickly were engaged to be married, and no one in town thought it was a bad thing. They were both loved greatly in the community, and both families were in agreement. Betty and Fred were to be married by the following summer. Betty was overwhelmed with joy and anticipation. She worked hard putting the details and plans of that special day together as Fred worked 12-hour shifts at the local paper mill. Betty and Fred chose the location of their wedding together. In the middle of Pahonik, there stood a very tall clock tower. They wanted to have their nuptials at the base doorway, and the first few levels of the tower were open for guests to mingle.
It sounds lovely.
It was. Here's a picture of the tower.
Oh my gosh.
So, the ceremony went off without a hitch. Fred and Betty said their I do's and kissed. Then, the after party began. People were eating, drinking beverages, all the goods. Then one of the guests suggested that they play a game.
Wedding games are fun.
They decided to play hide and seek with the bride.
That's a weird fucking wedding game.
I guess. It's another old, timey-wimey tradition. The point of the game was the bride hides, and whoever finds her gets to have a dance with her or something like that. So the game began, and everyone closed their eyes for 5 minutes. Betty took off to find a hiding place. Then finally, when it was time, everybody went out searching for her. Then after about 30 minutes or so, people started to get a little tired of playing the game. Then 45 minutes went by, and people started to worry because nobody had found Betty yet. Then an hour went by, and then 2 hours. Now everybody was freaking out.
For sure.
By this point, someone had contacted the local sheriff. The sheriff and his deputy, along with a group of townspeople, spent the next 8 hours looking for Betty to little avail. She was, for all intents and purposes, a lost person. MIA. Gone girl gone. The sheriff questioned everybody and even opened a murder investigation, thinking maybe a spurned lover or someone had killed her. There was no body and no one could think of who would want to harm her. Fred was heartbroken. He looked and waited for Betty for years, only to meet an early death himself in a paper mill accident 10 years later. Over the decades to come, stories of a mysterious pale bride started to surface.
It's a ghost story too?
Oh yes, it's a ghost story. People would bring their children out to the tower for weekend picnics or field trips, and time again, someone who climbed past the second level would come back speaking of encountering a beautiful, ghostly figure in white, a bride. Every story was similar. They always said she seemed like she wanted to show them something, but always they would run away scared. Until sometime in the late 1980s, I think, a new sheriff's deputy had been hired. He was from out of town. He had never heard of the story until one morning he overheard someone mention it at the local diner. He inquired about what they were talking about, and once told, he thought it was a joke. The other diners insisted it was not. In fact, they knew Betty from those days, and one of them had seen the pale ghost herself. The deputy decided to stay the night in the tower to prove it was nonsense. He took a flashlight and a sleeping bag and hunkered down there with a good book or something. He had stayed up as late as he could before finally drifting off to sleep. A couple hours later, he was awakened by an eerie moan. He opened his eyes, and there she was, the pale bride. At first, he wanted to run away, but he fought the urge. She seemed desperate to show him something. So, he followed. He followed her up to the third floor of the tower with her illuminating his way. She floated over to the far left wall and suddenly disappeared. The deputy inspected the area she had been and noticed how there were creases in the wall paneling different from the other areas. He pressed hard against it, and after a few tries, it gave way. It was a paneled section about 4 feet by 4 feet. It fell in, and he looked around inside the passageway. It was so dark, so he pulled out his flashlight. At first, he didn't see anything, so he crawled inside. After shuffling a few feet through the tight space, he felt something with his free hand. He slowly moved the flashlight up and realized with horror that he was staring at the dried out husk of Betty Marie Turner.
No way.
Way! According to an autopsy on the corpse, it turned out that when trying to find a place to hide at her wedding, Betty had crawled into that small space and accidentally cut her wrist on a large nail. She had bled out quickly, and already a quaint young thing, she was unable to make her way back out. With all the noise from the party going and the fact that she was inside the wall, little noise could escape. So, no one heard her whimpered cries.
That's a good one.
Thanks. I had a good time discovering that story.
Where did you hear of that one?
The book Whispered Ways, Forgotten Lore of the Commonwealth by Georgia Breckenridge. It's so good.
Oh, you have to let me borrow it.
I definitely will. Okay, so before we go on, just to let everyone know, we have a very special treat for you, our Patreon supporters. When you contribute just $5 or more, you can hear an episode of our sound engineer, Brett's new podcast, Wacky Washington, where he talks about Mels Hole for the first story, and it's so fascinating.
Oh, the one where you can hear sounds from hell itself?
The very same one. Yeah, the devil himself has been seen flying in and out of the old hole.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I don't want to make it.
That's all right. It's understandable. The devil has also been sighted at a few bars as well. Gotta wet the whistle from time to time after all that brimstone.
That almost sounds like a sponsor slot, but really, it's not.
What it is hot.
Stop rhyming, please.
Okay. Completely normal segue. But we should turn to our emails and callers because that's what we do here at Sinister Mysteries. Let's connect up.
Roger that. We have a live one here. Just came in about 5 minutes ago. A spooky warning.
What? Really? Warning about what this time? Don't go into the woods, that kind of thing?
Actually, yeah. Some psychic saying we shouldn't go into the woods surrounding Camp Holyoke. Like we haven't heard that one a million times.
The danger is the point, though. After all, how could we call ourselves specialists, if not journalists and hunters, if we didn't go directly into the heart of danger?
Tell me more about your heart.
It's cute. It's beating full of hot-blooded American goodness. And it wants to get deeper into the
Sinister mystery.
Okay, Anna, let's take a caller, shall we? The last thing we need is more depressing notes of, ooh, don't go into the cabin in the woods.
Okay, here's a good one. Caller, you're on. Todd from Indiana, say hello.
Hello?
There we are. You're live on Sinister Mysteries. What's up?
Demon babies, that's what.
Oh boy.
Could you, elaborate?
Demon babies, when you summon them and they just jam razor sharp dicks in your face.
I see. Looks like we got some technical difficulties on this one.
I'd say he had some technical difficulties. Looks like we'll have to say goodbye to that caller, and here's another one. Right, Anna?
Go ahead, caller. You're live on Sinister Mysteries. Say hello. Steve from BlackRock.
Ooh, BlackRock. That sounds mysterious.
Hello. I'd like to bring up clandestine bargains between the government and the devil herself.
Herself. How modern of you.
Can you elaborate on that, Steve?
I can. Ancient artifacts are being sold from the devil herself to certain organizations within the government. They are using these artifacts against the citizenry. We're nothing but guinea pigs in their experiment. Grist for the mill, meat for the grinder.
Great. Now I want dinner.
I mean, yeah, Anna, but that's later. Steve, do you have any proof of any of this? If so, please send any and all documents to our whistleblower line. Anna, send him the private message.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how much longer I can evade them. So do send me that line so I can...
Shit. I sent it to him, but it's like the account doesn't exist.
Hello? Hello, caller? Steve, are you there? Huh. Well, I guess you got too close. Remember, gang, you can anonymously request our whistleblower line at any point in time. In fact, it'd be best if you just sent the documents to us and then call. I do hope Steve is okay.
Better than that Todd guy.
Ugh, yes. Okay, we're going to call it for this episode, but join us again next week when we'll be covering even more sinister mysteries, including who really gave birth to Batboy, and whether or not mermaid people are even able to reproduce with human beings.
Fascinating stuff.
Indeed.
Good night, everybody,
and
keep it mysterious.
Sinister Mysteries.